The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the bacon is sizzling. Welcome to the Daily Swole.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 173 of the Daily Mother Swole. Ho, ho, ho. It is hump day. We are going to be talking booty today. I got my hair up in a bun because I want it to be like Super Saiyan style. I'm amped up. Thank you for joining me on Facebook Live, Periscope, Busker, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher. Whew. I gotta learn to take a deeper breath when I say all that. I'm so many places, I almost die if I say it all in one breath. Today's episode, butt workouts, the ugly... I'm sorry, that's not what we're talking about. Butt workouts, the ugly truth. The ugly truth behind butt training, booty training, butt workouts. You see a lot of this online. You see a lot of this on Instagram. You see a lot of glute workouts, glute training, this, that, and the other, all these fancy exercises. You see these chicks wearing next to nothing. You see a lot of bad form, to be honest. You see a lot of bad form. You see a lot of bad shit going on. This is the reality when it comes to glute training. This is the reality for what you should actually be thinking about, what you should actually be doing. And let's just jump right into it. I've talked about some of these topics before. It's going to start with alignment. First off, most people that start trying to isolate muscles, really, they're doing glute workout or they're doing, let's say, squats or doing lunges, trying to hit their butt. They're trying to hit glutes with their training. One of the problems is that they are not aligned to begin with. They are not even properly structurally in position to start training glutes. The problem is most people have very tight hip flexors, muscles on the front of their hips from sitting down, sitting at a computer, sitting in a car too often, and their glutes are shut down, resulting in too much hamstring activation. So the first thing is you need alignment. You need to start doing corrective exercises, start doing glute isolation, but ironically, a lot of times when people do glute workouts, they start trying to do isolation movements, which is okay. You want to do glutes, you start doing these kickbacks, start doing hip bridges, but your alignment is off even when you're doing the corrective exercises. The thing is with the corrective exercise is that it has to be perfect. Let me make that clear. The thing is with a corrective exercise is it has to be perfect. A corrective exercise is setting a new foundation, is setting a new alignment, is setting something new from the start. So you're teaching your body something. You're reteaching your body what it needs to do and remapping it. If you're doing that incorrectly, you are defeating the purpose. And the thing with a remapping is that it's going to be more challenging and need less weight and need more focus, slower movements, better form, better concentration, because you are retraining the actual movement pattern, not trying to move a lot of weight. So just throwing a big bar on your hips and just doing heavy hip bridges, that's not going to activate the glutes any more than doing any other kind of weight or any kind of exercise. You need to go slow, controlled, activate those stabilizers, and create those new neural patterns. This leads into the second point. Arching your back doesn't count. If you think you have a butt and you have a big lower back arch, it doesn't count. The lower back arch is a compensation. It's a compensation mechanism by the body. You will activate too much movement in your lower back. I've talked about stable joints and mobile joints. If your mobile joint, such as your hip, is stiff and not moving properly, your body will take mobility from other areas that aren't as mobile, such as your lower back. The lower back should not be arching so much. The lower back should be drawn in. It should be flat, as if you're lying on your back, trying to flatten your lower back to the mat. That's the position. I always use this example. You want to pretend like your hips are a bucket of water. You're trying to pour water out the backside. You want to tuck your invisible tail between your legs, posteriorly tilt your pelvis to properly align the spine to remap the glutes for activity. And that's the position that you should maintain through your glute isolation exercises. So try not to arch your back, try to keep your back more flat, neutral. If you're arching too much and you're not activating your core stabilizers, you are just teaching your body more and more bad habits. Next point, the hip only has about 30 degrees of extension. Now, if you're standing up straight and you're properly aligned, that means moving the leg back behind you. When you see people doing these kickbacks and they're kicking and if you're watching on YouTube or live, leaning forward doesn't activate the glutes anymore. How high your foot gets, how high your leg gets does not make any more activation for the glutes. It's just a compensation. Leaning forward, throwing your head almost into the machine when you're doing a cable kickback does not hit the glutes anymore. It's an isometric because after you get about 30 degrees, which isn't that far, it's only maybe a few inches back behind the plane of the body, you're not working the glutes anymore. The hip doesn't have that kind of range of motion unless you're just stupid flexible. So the important thing with hitting the glutes is that you're moving through the range of motion and you're not over-exaggerating and you're not compensating and hitting other muscles afterwards. Leaning forward, I don't want to say it's going to hurt you because it might not hurt you, but what you're doing is you're wasting effort, you're wasting energy, and you're actually hitting other muscles besides the glutes. And if the point of the exercise is to hit the glutes, then you're making the exercise a moot point. You're expending energy and you're losing out on repetitions because you're spreading the force elsewhere. Okay, that's my point. So if you're doing a cable kickback, if you're doing a hip bridge, you don't want to go as high as the ceiling if your lower back starts arching. You don't want to kick back all the way to the ceiling if you're leaning forward all the way to the ground. Once your hip can't move any further, that's it. You don't need to lean forward anymore. Your glute does not have any more action. Leaning forward is not going to do anything. There are three parts of the glute. There's a gluteus maximus. That's what everyone thinks about when they want to work their glutes. There's a gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus. The most important muscles for any kind of shape or aesthetic appeal is the gluteus medius and the gluteus maximus. The gluteus medius actually does a couple other actions. The gluteus medius can also turn the thigh inwards. It can turn the thigh outwards rotationally, and it pushes the leg out to the side. So you've seen these machines where you push your legs out and repeat that way. You've seen me do some of those lateral tube walking where you have the band around your thighs or your ankles and you're working the side of the glutes. The sides of the hip are so important because they add stability. Now, when you're correcting your body's movement, when you're activating muscles, even if the side, the gluteus medius, isn't going to get massive, what you're going to get is more stable pelvis, a more stable hip joint, a more stable base of your core, and it's going to translate into better activation of your gluteus maximus. It's going to translate into better strength production. It's going to translate, as a result, better force production and bigger muscular development if you're looking for more shape or bigger muscle size. Training all your muscles of your glutes, doing all planes of motion, is very important. That's why I encourage doing yoga, because you hit those stabilizers and you get that flexibility and that rotation and you get that activation. So if you're having problems activating your glutes, if you have very tight hips and you don't have the balance and you can't activate the muscles or get the balance that I'm describing, stretching, flexibility, and mobility training is what you should be doing, which is why yoga is such an easy answer. Do yoga and you will feel better, you'll look better, and everything will come into play. And really, as you get older, one of the biggest things that's most important isn't how big you are, if you have abs, it's do you have pain? Do you have aches in your joints? Do you have any stiffness? It becomes quality of life more than, do I look good in the mirror? You stop caring so much about that, and you start caring more about, why does my knee hurt? I can't bend down and do anything. I can't go running. I wish I could. Oh, to be young again. Well, better take care of this stuff now so you are younger for longer and you're more mobile. It's more about quality of life rather than how long you live. I'd rather be skinny the rest of my life and not have knee problems than be 300 pounds of lean muscle mass and I'll be in a wheelchair when I'm 50. So there's a trade-off there, but you have to start thinking about that now. You have to try to have perspective even at a younger age. So keep that in mind. People forget about that muscle. People forget about the side. People forget about everything but the booty in the back. You get stiffness in the wrong areas. Yeah, absolutely. You get stiffness in all those. You get stiffness in those mobile joints. You get stiffness in the shoulder. You get stiffness in the ankle. You get stiffness in the hip. You get stiffness where you're supposed to be mobile. And again, the problem with that is when you're stiff where you're supposed to be mobile, you're going to be mobile where you're supposed to be stiff. You're supposed to be more rigid in your lower back. You're supposed to be more rigid in your knee. When you have more laxity or more stiffness in your ankle, your hip, and your shoulder, you're going to start translating more movement into those stiffer areas because your body is going to try to detour around the areas that it can't move where it's supposed to move. And then you'll get more torque in your lower back. You'll get more twisting in your knee. And that's why as you get older, you start having knee problems. You start having lower back problems. I only want to be stiff in one place. That's a good one. That's a good one. I had to share that with the world. That's a good one. It'll be on Daily Swole 173 for all time. That's a good one, Facebook Live. Good one, Steve. Props. That's a good one. Yeah, I agree with that. You should not be stiff anywhere but that one place. And that gets more challenging as you get older too, or so I hear. The activation of the glutes. When you're trying to activate muscles, when you're trying to do at the beginning more stabilization, more fast twitch, or more slow twitch, more stabilizer muscle fibers, you need to do higher repetitions and slower movements. So on my YouTube channel, and for those of you that might be joining me for the first time, remember youtube.com/Swolenormous or at Swolenormous on YouTube. If you're on Facebook Live, you could click that sign up button. It just sends you to my YouTube channel. Also on Periscope, there's a link in my Periscope profile for my YouTube channel. And on Busker, likewise, YouTube at Swolenormous. And of course, if you're watching me on YouTube, you've already found me. And if you're on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Stitcher, youtube.com/Swolenormous. You could just look up Swolenormous on YouTube. SWOLENORMOUS. Sounds like the Mickey Mouse Club. But go on there, exercise video list. You'll see earlier in my exercise video list, you'll see the prone ISO app. You'll see the plank, how to do a plank properly. You'll see how to do my supine hip bridge, which is a glute activation. You'll see how to do the single leg squat. Those are glute activation exercises. You need to do those slow, controlled, follow the instructions, follow what I say. Those things need to be done with higher repetitions, slower movements. You'll activate those fibers. Once you keep on doing those just like that until you start feeling all the burn in your glutes, and then you know that your body is firing the muscles that should be firing. And yeah, Lee, I noticed that. I will be on that. I've just been super busy. I will check that ASAP. Hamstrings will work when the glutes are not working. So if you're doing lunges, if you're doing squats, you will be, and you're getting sore under the butt, you're getting sore on the back of the leg. That area is going to, that's not good. That's called synergistic dominance. The hamstrings work with the glutes, but they're not the prime mover. So if you're doing squats, if you're doing lunges, this is going to be an issue because you're going to know that you're not firing your glutes properly. You don't want your hamstrings getting really sore during a squat and lunge type workout because they're not supposed to be the ones that are getting hit. That means your glutes aren't firing. That sets you up for an injury because your hamstrings will get very tight, your glutes are shutting down, and you're having a muscle working that shouldn't be working primarily. The hamstrings are a synergist. They help the glutes. The glutes should be the primary muscle that's working. But at the same time, the hamstrings are important because they tie in under the glute muscle and they'll create that little shelf, that cut underneath the glute that gives that nice, lifted appearance. So it's important to train the hamstrings, but if you have any hip compensations, any spinal misalignment, I want you to focus on activating your glutes first, developing your glutes first, and then starting to add back in your hamstring training because doing squats, doing lunges, that's all well and good, but if without proper glute activation, you are going to be hitting the wrong muscle. So it's really important to activate the glutes, stretch and inhibit the hamstrings, that's fine, but activate the glutes first. Start making sure that you feel all those stabilization and activation exercises burn where they should. Make sure that you are going slow and controlled. And then when you do your isolated glute training, you can promote or push towards and be more advanced in the future and mix in low weight, higher repetition, and also heavier weight and lower repetition. Hip bridges are great when they're weighted. Single leg squats are great when there's more resistance, but you have to wait for that heavy weight to get to that heavy weight until you start activating properly. So if you're just jumping right into heavier weight and trying to go for mass, your body is not going to isolate and hit those stabilization and hit those slow twitch fibers because you are already in an improper mapped state. Your body is already firing the wrong muscles in the wrong way. So you have to go slower tempo, higher repetition, less weight. And then once you activate those muscles, then you can start integrating them and integrating the glutes with the hamstrings and with the other muscles of the hip in the lunge, in the squat, and in those more compound multi-joint, heavier resistance, more force production movements. I'll stay for a few minutes after on Periscope and the Facebook Live. If you have questions, remember you can follow me on Snapchat, on Instagram, and check out all that ish. Thank you for joining me for episode 173 of The Daily Mother Swole. Hump day, take that into consideration. Take this episode to heart. If you haven't checked out my spotlight video pinned to the top of my Facebook page, 1 minute for the rest of your life, it's still going strong. So check that out. Share with people that need the inspiration and the motivation. And that's on Facebook at Swolenormous. And of course, all my other social media, you can check me out there. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I will see all of you tomorrow for episode 174. Peace out. Enjoy the rest of your hump day.